A broke baker sheltered a stranger all night. She was a millionaire CEO lesbian story. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's emotional story about two women discovering love in the most unexpected way, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story from our channel. It is quick, it is free, and it helps us continue bringing you more heartfelt, dramatic, and unforgettable stories about courage, healing, and love between women. Your support truly means the world to us. And tell me, where are you watching from today? Share your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Now, let us return to our main character and the moment her life began to change. I had exactly $47.18 left in my bank account the night I gave away the last thing in my bakery I could have eaten myself. I remember staring at that number on my phone while the old refrigerator hummed behind me and rain tapped against the front windows of Miller's Bakery. $47.18. That was all that stood between me and completely broke. My name is Hannah Miller. I was 34 years old, and the little bakery my mother had left me was 3 weeks away from closing for good. The rent was overdue. The oven had started making a noise that sounded expensive. 2 suppliers wanted payment by Friday, and a white envelope from the bank sat unopened beside the register because I already knew what it said. Still, at 11:43 that night, I was baking. Cinnamon and brown sugar warmed the air while rain swept across the empty street outside. Most people would have gone home hours earlier, but I had a breakfast order due at 7 the next morning, and losing one more customer wasn't something I could afford. I pulled a tray from the oven and counted the rolls. 25 for the order. 1 extra. Dinner, I thought. My stomach agreed. Then I heard 3 knocks against the glass door. I froze. The close sign was hanging directly in front of whoever stood outside. Another knock came, softer this time. Through the rain-streaked glass, I could make out a woman beneath the narrow awning. She was tall, with pale skin, dark blonde hair soaked against her coat, and both arms wrapped around herself against the cold. I should have ignored her. My mother had spent years telling me that kindness didn't mean forgetting common sense. But she'd also had another rule, one she'd written on a little card that still hung beside the register: never let an empty chair matter more than a hungry person. I looked at the woman again. Something about her didn't seem dangerous. She looked exhausted. Lost, maybe. And very alone. I unlocked the door. "We're closed," I said, keeping one hand on the handle. "I know." Her voice was calm but tired. "I'm sorry. My car stopped about a mile back. My phone died, and I saw your lights." I glanced past her. The street was nearly invisible beneath the rain. "Come inside." Relief crossed her face so quickly I almost missed it. She stepped in, and I locked the door again. I found a clean towel and handed it to her. "Thank you," she said. "I'm Claire." "Hannah." Her eyes moved around the bakery, taking in the mismatched chairs, handwritten menu board, and display case with 3 lonely cookies left inside. Then her gaze landed on the cinnamon roll. "Have you eaten?" I asked. "I'll be fine." That wasn't an answer. I put the roll on a plate and slid it toward her. "It's the last one." Claire looked from the plate to me. "Then shouldn't you have it?" I smiled despite myself. "Probably." For the first time, she smiled too. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere beyond town, and the lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. I had no idea who Claire really was. I didn't know that somewhere across the city people were searching for her, or that her name appeared on buildings worth more than everything I would earn in a lifetime. And I certainly didn't know that before sunrise, the stranger eating my last cinnamon roll would force me to question what it really meant to have nothing, and what it really meant to be rich. Claire held the cinnamon roll with both hands as if I had given her something far more valuable than flour, butter, and sugar. "This is incredible," she said after the first bite. "You sound surprised." "I am surprised." I raised an eyebrow. "That is dangerous territory when talking to the baker." She laughed, and something about the sound changed the room. Until then, she had seemed guarded, almost formal, but that laugh belonged to someone warmer. I poured her coffee and plugged her phone into the charger behind the counter. The storm showed no sign of easing. Rain streamed down the windows, and every few minutes the wind rattled the old sign outside. "You can wait here until it passes," I told her. Claire looked toward the darkness beyond the glass. "I might be waiting a while." "Then congratulations. You have been promoted from customer to unpaid employee." "What are my qualifications?" "Can you roll dough?" "Absolutely not." "Perfect. You start immediately." 10 minutes later, Claire stood beside me wearing one of my mother's old white aprons. She stared suspiciously at the dough on the work table. "You really do not know how to do this, do you?" I asked. "I am excellent at many things." "That was not my question." She smiled. "No, I have never made bread." I showed her how to press the dough with the heel of her hand, fold it, turn it, and repeat. At first, she treated every movement like a problem that needed solving. Eventually, she stopped thinking so much. "There," I said. "You are learning." "I have a demanding teacher." "You are getting free coffee." "Do not complain." For a while, we worked in comfortable silence. Then Claire noticed the small wooden shelf near the door. A handwritten sign above it read, "Community Shelf." "Take what you need. Leave what you can." "What is that?" she asked. "Bread, muffins, sometimes sandwiches. People who need something can take it." Claire looked at me. "For free. That is generally how free works." "But you said business has been difficult." I stopped kneading. I had not realized how much I had already told her. Maybe strangers were easier to be honest with because they disappeared afterward. Difficult is a polite word. Then why give food away? I glanced at the faded recipe card hanging beside the register, still written in my mother's handwriting. Because being broke does not mean I have to become poor in every way. Claire went completely still. Her expression changed, but I could not read it. "My mother started that shelf," I continued. "She believed people remember how you treated them when they had nothing to offer you." Claire looked down at her flour-covered hands. "She sounds wise." She was. The past tense settled quietly between us. Claire did not ask the question people usually asked. She simply said, "I am sorry." Somehow, that meant more. A few minutes later, the lights suddenly went dark. The refrigerator stopped humming. The bakery fell silent except for the rain. "Well," I whispered, "that is new." Claire laughed softly somewhere beside me. I found the emergency lantern beneath the counter and switched it on. Warm light filled the small kitchen, catching flour in the air like tiny stars. For the first time that night, Claire looked completely relaxed. No phone. No outside world. No explanation of who either of us was supposed to be. Just two women in a dark bakery waiting out a storm. "What about you?" I asked. "What do you do?" Claire hesitated. Only for a second, but I noticed. "I manage things," she said. "That sounds mysterious." "It is mostly meetings." "Then tonight must be terrifying." "You are making bread." She smiled, but her eyes remained thoughtful. "Hannah, why did you open the door for me?" I looked toward the empty chair by the window, then back at her. "Because tonight you needed someone to." Claire lowered her gaze, and for reasons I did not understand, my simple answer seemed to leave her without one of her own. The power stayed out long enough for the bakery to become its own little world. Without the refrigerator humming or the clock ticking above the register, I could hear things I usually missed: rain sliding down the windows, the soft scrape of Claire folding dough, even the faint creak of the wooden floor beneath our feet. "I think mine looks wrong," Claire said. I turned toward her work table and tried not to laugh. "It looks ambitious." "That is a diplomatic answer." "It looks like a map of Florida." She stared at the dough, then at me. "I was hoping for Massachusetts." I laughed, and this time Claire joined me. For several minutes, nothing outside that bakery seemed important. Not my overdue rent. Not the bank envelope. Not whatever complicated life Claire had temporarily escaped. We were simply Hannah and Claire, two women covered in flour at nearly 1 in the morning. I showed her how to shape the dough again, slower this time. She watched carefully. "You make it look easy," she said. "My mother taught me when I was 8. I glanced toward the old photograph beside the register. Mom stood in front of the bakery on opening day, smiling beneath the faded red awning. She used to say bread could tell when you were impatient. Your mother had a saying for everything. You noticed. I think I would have liked her. The warmth in Claire's voice caught me unexpectedly. She would have fed you until you could not move. Claire smiled, but then her attention shifted toward the community shelf. Did she start that too? During a bad winter, a family came in one afternoon and counted coins before ordering one muffin for 3 people. Mom gave them a bag of food and refused their money. The shelf appeared the next morning. Claire was quiet. And you kept it going. I tried. Even now, I knew what she meant. Even with $47.18. Even with bills I could not pay. Especially now, I said. When you know what it feels like to worry about tomorrow, it gets harder to pretend other people are invisible. Claire looked at me for a long moment. Most people I know would call that bad business. Maybe it is. You do not sound worried. I smiled faintly. I am terrified. That surprised her. I had surprised myself too. The bakery might close before the end of the month, I admitted. Saying it aloud made the possibilities suddenly real. I have tried everything. Longer hours, catering, weekend markets. I am just running out of road. Claire leaned against the work table. If someone offered to solve it for you, would you let them? Depends. On what? Whether they were helping me stand up or trying to carry me. Her expression shifted again, that same unreadable look I had noticed earlier. Before she could answer, the lights flickered back to life. The refrigerator awakened with a groan, and the clock above us read 1:26 in the morning. Claire's phone lit up on the counter almost immediately. Notifications filled the screen faster than I could count. She reached for it, then stopped. That looks important, I said. It probably is. But she turned the phone face down. It can wait. We finished the breakfast order together. Claire's final roll was crooked, but recognizable. I placed it beside mine. Not Florida anymore, I said. Rhode Island. Generous. She laughed. Then the rain began to soften. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt strangely disappointed that morning was getting closer. I still knew almost nothing about Claire. She had carefully avoided every question about her work, her family, and why she had been driving alone that night. Yet somehow I trusted her. Just before dawn, we sat beside the front window with fresh coffee between us. Claire looked out at the wet street and said quietly, I cannot remember the last time someone did something for me without wanting something back. I did not know how to answer that. So I simply said, then maybe you have been surrounded by the wrong people. Claire turned toward me, and for one quiet second, something passed between us that neither of us named. Then headlights swept across the bakery windows. A large black sport utility vehicle stopped at the curb. Another pulled in behind it. Claire closed her eyes. I suppose, she whispered, my night without titles is over. The first woman through the bakery door wore a charcoal coat, polished shoes, and the expression of someone who had spent the entire night solving an emergency. She stopped when she saw Claire sitting beside me with flour on her sleeves and my mother's old apron tied around her waist. Ms. Whitmore. Claire stood slowly. Good morning, Rachel. I looked from one woman to the other. Rachel released a breath. We have been trying to reach you for hours. Your driver found the car, but your phone was unreachable. The board has been calling since midnight. The board. Driver. Ms. Whitmore. Each word landed like a puzzle piece I had not known I was holding. Claire untied the apron. My phone died. Mr. Lawson moved the 7:30 meeting, but the redevelopment committee still needs your approval before noon. I stared at Claire. She noticed. Hannah, I can explain. You manage things, I said. Claire almost smiled, but embarrassment reached her eyes first. Rachel glanced at me, clearly confused. Ms. Whitmore is the Chief Executive Officer of Whitmore Urban Group. For a second, the only sound in the bakery was coffee dripping into the pot. I knew that name. Everyone around Boston knew it. Whitmore Urban Group owned hotels, office towers, luxury apartments, and enough commercial property to make my little bakery feel like a dollhouse. You are Claire Whitmore? I asked. Yes. The Claire Whitmore? Unfortunately, there seems to be only one. I should have been angry, but mostly I felt foolish for offering bus directions to a woman whose company probably owned more vehicles than my neighborhood had parking spaces. Claire reached for her coat. I did not intend to mislead you. You told me you managed things. Technically, that was true. Very technically. She looked down, then laughed softly. I did too. Somehow that helped. Before leaving, Claire took out her wallet, newly delivered by Rachel, and placed several bills beside the register. I pushed them back. The coffee and cinnamon roll were on me. Hannah, please. You were stranded, not dining at a hotel. Claire studied me. Then let me pay for the ingredients we used. You worked for them. Badly. Very badly. Rachel tried unsuccessfully to hide a smile. Claire finally returned the money to her wallet. Thank you for last night. Her voice had changed. The polished executive was returning, but beneath it I could still hear the woman who had shaped dough beside me in emergency light. Drive safely, I said. Claire paused at the door. I hope this is not goodbye. Before I could answer, she stepped into the pale morning. The black vehicles pulled away, leaving wet tire marks on the street. I stood behind the counter holding the apron she had forgotten. Across town, Claire sat in the rear seat while Rachel reviewed the morning schedule. The redevelopment packet is on the tablet, Rachel said. Legal needs your signature. Today, Claire opened the file. Maps appeared first, followed by projected revenues and property lists. She scrolled without much interest until a familiar street name caught her attention. Then she stopped. On the screen was a photograph of a faded red awning beneath a heading marked Phase 1 Acquisition. Miller's Bakery. Claire stared at it. The same bakery where Hannah had fed her when she believed Claire had nothing. The same bakery with the community shelf. The same bakery Hannah had admitted she might lose within weeks. Rachel, Claire said quietly, what happens to the existing businesses? Most leases will be terminated after acquisition. The buildings are scheduled for redevelopment. Claire looked again at Hannah's bakery. Less than an hour earlier, Hannah had refused her money because kindness, in her world, was not a transaction. Now Claire was holding a document that could erase that world with a signature. Ms. Whitmore? Rachel asked. Claire locked the tablet screen. Cancel the approval. Rachel blinked. For how long? Claire looked back through the rear window, though the bakery had already disappeared from sight. Until I understand exactly what we are about to destroy. Claire came back 3 days later carrying nothing, but the apron she had borrowed and an expression I could not quite read. It was just after 2 in the afternoon, the quiet hour between lunch and the after-school crowd, and I was standing behind the counter calculating how many bags of flour I could afford before Friday. I believe this belongs to you, she said. I looked at the neatly folded apron in her hands. I thought Millionaire chief executive officers had people for returning laundry. They do. I ignored them. That made me smile before I could stop myself. Claire ordered 6 cinnamon rolls for her office, then 12 cookies, then stared at the display case as though searching for another excuse to remain. That is a lot of sugar for one meeting, I said. It is a very serious meeting. About frosting? Now it is. She returned 2 days later. Then again the following Tuesday. Each visit lasted longer. Somewhere between coffee refills and conversations across the counter, Claire Whitmore stopped feeling like the woman whose name belonged on skyscrapers. She became the woman who hated raisins, drank coffee with 1 splash of cream, and still could not shape bread without making something that resembled a small state. I learned that she had inherited responsibility young after her father became ill, and that success had slowly turned every relationship into a question she could never answer. Did people want Claire or access to Claire Whitmore? She learned that I sang badly when I opened the bakery at 5 in the morning, that I still used my mother's recipe cards even though I knew every recipe by heart, and that I checked the community shelf before locking up each night. What Claire did not tell me was that Miller's Bakery remained inside a redevelopment file on her desk. I did not know she had postponed the project twice. I did not know members of her board were demanding an explanation. I only knew that when she walked through my door, my worst days became easier. One Friday evening, Claire arrived after closing and found me sitting on the floor beside the oven with an estimate in my hand. How bad? She asked. $4,800. She sat beside me without worrying about her expensive coat touching the flour-dusted floor. For the repair? For replacement. Apparently, this oven has decided retirement sounds attractive. Claire was silent for a moment. I could help. I looked at her. Claire, I know what you said that first night. Then you know my answer. You would rather lose the bakery? No. I would rather fight for it. She studied my face. There is a difference between accepting help and surrendering your independence. There is. But I need to know I can survive because I built something worth saving, not because someone wealthy decided she liked me. The final words escaped before I could catch them. Claire's eyes softened. You think I like you? Heat rushed into my cheeks. You buy enough cinnamon rolls to qualify as suspicious. She laughed, but neither of us looked away. The bakery suddenly felt very quiet. For the record, Claire said, I do like you. My heart gave one ridiculous jump. For the record, I replied, I had noticed. She reached across the space between us and gently took my flour-covered hand. There was nothing dramatic about it. Somehow, that made it matter more. For several seconds, we simply sat there smiling like two people who had accidentally found something neither had been looking for. Then Claire's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and the warmth left her expression. I need to take this. She stepped outside. Through the glass, I watched her answer. I could not hear the voice on the other end, but I saw Claire look directly at the bakery sign above me. I said do not move forward with the Miller property. She said sharply enough that I caught every word through the door. My smile disappeared. Miller property. I looked toward the unopened bank envelope beside the register, then back at Claire. Suddenly, I understood something that made my stomach drop. Claire had not kept coming back only because she liked my cinnamon rolls. And whatever truth she had been hiding was standing right outside my door. Claire saw me through the glass before she finished the call. Her face changed immediately. She lowered the phone and came back inside, closing the door quietly behind her. Hannah, what is the Miller property? I asked. For once, Claire had no quick answer. That frightened me more than any answer could have. Tell me. She placed her phone on the counter. Whitmore Urban Group has been planning a redevelopment project in this neighborhood. I stared at her. This neighborhood? Yes. And my bakery? Claire drew a slow breath. The original proposal includes this building. The words seemed impossible inside the room where my mother had spent 18 years building a life. I looked at the old tables, the handwritten menu, the community shelf. Includes it how? The existing buildings would be acquired and replaced. Replaced? My voice sounded strangely calm. You mean demolished? Claire looked down. That was enough. How long have you known? Since the morning after the storm. Something inside me went cold. The morning after? I repeated. You knew every time you came back here? I stopped the approval. That is not what I asked. Yes. Her voice softened. I knew. I stepped away from her. Suddenly, every coffee we had shared felt different. Every conversation. Every time she had asked about the bakery. You sat right there and listened to me talk about losing this place. I was trying to understand what the project would actually cost people. You could have asked me. I should have. You let me trust you. Claire moved closer, then stopped when she saw my expression. I never wanted to hurt you. This is not about whether you wanted to. You had information that could change my life, and you decided when I deserved to know it. I was trying to protect you until I found another solution. I shook my head. That is exactly the problem. Claire looked confused. What is? You think protecting someone means making decisions for them. Silence filled the bakery. Claire glanced toward the community shelf, then back at me. I can buy this building personally. I can transfer it to you. The bakery would be safe. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. You still do not understand. Hannah, I can fix this. I do not want to be fixed. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I did not take them back. I needed you to believe I could stand, Claire. Not by the ground beneath my feet. Her eyes filled with something that looked like regret. What do you want me to do? Tell me the truth. All of it. So she did. She explained that the project covered several blocks. That leases could end. That family businesses might have to relocate. That the financial projections were strong. She also told me she had delayed the approval and that her board was pressuring her to move forward. When she finished, I felt more tired than angry. "You should go. Hannah. Please." Claire reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small key. Weeks earlier, after I had helped prepare pastries for a company event, she had given me a spare key to her downtown apartment so I could drop off an early delivery without waiting downstairs. I had forgotten it was still on my keyring. I removed it and placed it in her palm. Her fingers closed around it slowly. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I know. That was what made it harder." Claire walked to the door, but before leaving she looked back at the bakery as if seeing it for the first time. Then she was gone. I stood alone beneath the warm lights, surrounded by everything I was afraid of losing. My eyes landed on my mother's faded card beside the register. "Never let an empty chair matter more than a hungry person." For years I had thought kindness meant giving people what they needed. That night I understood something else. Sometimes love meant respecting another person's right to fight their own battle. And if Claire truly cared about me, she would have to learn the difference. For the next 4 days, Claire did exactly what I had asked her to do. Nothing. She did not call. She did not send flowers. She did not send a lawyer, a check, or one of those expensive cars to wait outside my bakery. I had expected her silence to feel like relief. Instead, every time the bell above the door rang, some foolish part of me looked up hoping to see her. But missing Claire was not going to save Miller's bakery. On Monday morning, I opened the bank envelope. By noon, I had called my landlord, my accountant, and every small business owner on our block. By Tuesday evening, 12 of us were sitting around my mismatched tables with coffee, legal pads, and more fear than anyone wanted to admit. There was Mr. Bell from the hardware store, Denise from the flower shop, the Parkers from the family diner, and people I had known since childhood. "We cannot compete with Whitmore," someone said. "Maybe not with money," I replied. "But money is not the only thing that gives a neighborhood value." The room became quiet. I looked at the community shelf near the door and thought about my mother. She had never waited for someone powerful to solve a problem. She started with what she had. So we did the same. Over the next week, we gathered sales records, employment numbers, customer surveys, neighborhood history, and letters from residents. We found a local architect willing to help us design an alternative plan that renovated the existing buildings instead of replacing them. It would create fewer luxury units, but it would preserve the businesses already serving the community. For the first time in months, I stopped thinking of myself as a woman waiting to lose something. I was building an argument for why it deserved to remain. Across the city, Claire was learning a different lesson. Rachel later told me that Claire had spent those same days reviewing every page of the redevelopment proposal. Not just the profit projections, but the names behind the addresses. She visited businesses without announcing who she was. She listened. At a board meeting that Friday, one executive reportedly asked why she was suddenly treating sentiment like a financial metric. Claire answered, "Because numbers tell us what property costs. They do not always tell us what a place is worth." Still, she did not cancel the project. I would not have wanted her to. Canceling everything because of me would have been another version of the same mistake. Instead, Claire did something I never expected. She created a formal review process, allowing affected businesses to submit an alternative redevelopment proposal. No guarantees. No favors. Just a door that had not existed before. When the notice arrived, I read it 3 times. At the bottom was a date. We had 9 days to present our plan to the Whitmore board. 9 days to prove that keeping us was not charity. That evening, I stayed late assembling our presentation. At nearly midnight, I noticed something outside the front door. A paper bag sat beneath the awning. Inside was the apron Claire had worn during the storm, freshly washed and neatly folded. Nothing else. No expensive gift. No check. No request for forgiveness. Then I found a small note tucked into the pocket. It contained only 7 words. "The room is yours. Make them listen." I stood there for a long time holding that apron. Claire was finally beginning to understand. She was not offering to carry me. She was opening a door and trusting me to walk through it myself. 9 days later, I would walk into a boardroom 40 floors above Boston carrying my mother's recipe card in my pocket and the future of an entire block in my hands. The Whitmore boardroom was so quiet I could hear the second hand of the wall clock behind me. 20 people sat around a polished table overlooking Boston, and every one of them looked as though they belonged there. I felt like I had accidentally wandered into someone else's life. Then I saw Claire at the far end of the room. She wore a dark blue suit, her expression calm and professional. She did not smile at me. Somehow, that helped. She was not there to rescue me. This was my room now. I placed my notes on the table and began. My name is Hannah Miller, and my bakery is not the most profitable property in your redevelopment zone. Several board members glanced at one another. I thought I should save everyone 20 minutes and admit that first. A few people smiled. I continued. I showed them our proposal, the renovation costs, projected revenue, neighborhood employment numbers, and letters from residents. I explained how existing businesses could remain while new housing and commercial space were added around them. Then one board member leaned forward. Ms. Miller, your plan produces a lower return than ours. Yes, I said. For the first 5 years. I changed the slide. But your plan measures buildings. Ours measures what keeps people coming back to those buildings. I showed photographs of the hardware store repairing bicycles for neighborhood children, the diner delivering meals to older residents during snowstorms, and our community shelf. These businesses are not asking you to preserve a museum. We are asking you to invest in an ecosystem that already works. Another executive asked, and if the numbers fail? My hands trembled, but my voice did not. Then we accept that responsibility. Give us measurable targets. Give us deadlines. Make us earn our place here. But do not erase us before we have the chance to prove our value. I glanced at Claire. For the first time, something softened in her eyes. The board questioned me for nearly 40 minutes. When I finished, Claire asked me to wait outside. Those next 27 minutes felt longer than the night of the storm. Finally, Rachel opened the door. They are ready. I returned to my chair. Claire stood. The board has voted to adopt a revised redevelopment plan based substantially on the neighborhood proposal. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Existing qualifying businesses will receive renovation options and long-term leases tied to performance benchmarks rather than displacement. Relief washed through me, but Claire was not finished. The projected return is lower, she said, looking around the table, but profit is not weakened simply because it takes longer to arrive. Sustainable neighborhoods create durable value. The vote had not been unanimous. I could see that from several faces. But it had passed. Outside the boardroom, Claire found me near the elevators. You did that, she said. We did. No, Hannah. I opened a door. You walked through it. I looked at her and realized how much those words mattered. Thank you for listening. Claire nodded. I should have listened sooner. The elevator arrived, but I did not step inside immediately. I am still angry with you. I know. And I still miss you. Claire's carefully controlled expression finally broke into a small smile. I know that too. I laughed. You are annoyingly confident. Only about meetings. Bread remains beyond me. The elevator doors began to close, and I stopped them with my hand. Come by the bakery tomorrow morning. Claire looked surprised. Is that forgiveness? No. I smiled. It is coffee. She smiled back. I will take coffee. As the elevator descended, I touched the recipe card in my pocket. My bakery was not safe because a millionaire had saved it. It was safe because a community had been given the chance to speak, and someone powerful had finally understood that listening could be more valuable than control. Claire arrived the next morning at 6:15 carrying 2 coffees and wearing shoes that looked far too expensive for a flour-covered kitchen. I handed her the same white apron from the storm. You kept it, she said. You returned it. Twice, technically. Then try not to make a habit of leaving it behind. That morning did not magically repair everything between us. Neither did the next morning or the week after that. Trust returned slowly through ordinary things. Claire stopped trying to solve every problem before I could face it. I stopped assuming every offer from her came with invisible strings attached. When my old oven finally gave up, I applied for a small business equipment loan and bought a replacement myself. Claire celebrated by ordering enough cinnamon rolls for her entire office. "You know you do not have to invent meetings anymore," I told her. "I know." She smiled. "Now I just like the cinnamon rolls." "Only the cinnamon rolls?" She looked at me over her coffee. "Not only the cinnamon rolls." I smiled for the rest of the morning. 1 year later, the neighborhood looked different, but it still felt like home. The buildings had fresh brickwork, new lighting, safer sidewalks, and renovated storefronts. Mr. Bell still ran the hardware store. Denise still sold flowers next door. The Parkers still served pancakes at 6 every morning. Miller's bakery had survived too. More than survived, actually. The new oven worked beautifully, catering orders had doubled, and the community shelf had grown into an entire corner supported by customers and neighboring businesses. On the anniversary of the storm, I closed early. Rain had started falling just after sunset, gentle this time, tapping against the windows like an old memory. At 8:30, Claire walked through the door. No driver. No assistant. No business suit. Just Claire in jeans, a cream sweater, and the same smile that had become one of my favorite things. "We are closed," I said. She looked at the sign. "I have heard that before. And yet you keep showing up. Apparently I have a weakness for stubborn bakers." I turned toward the counter, where 2 warm cinnamon rolls waited on separate plates. Claire stopped. Two. I thought there was always only one left. I slid one plate toward her. There was. What changed? I looked at her. I started saving too. Claire became very still. A year earlier, silence between us had been filled with secrets. Now it felt different. Safe. She reached across the counter and took my hand. "Hannah, that first night, I thought you were the one who had nothing." I glanced around the bakery. I nearly did. "No. You had $47, a failing oven, and more generosity than anyone I knew. I had everything money could buy, and somehow I had forgotten how to let people matter without calculating what they could give me." My eyes stung unexpectedly. "You remembered. You taught me." I shook my head. "Maybe we taught each other." Claire smiled. "That sounds more accurate." We carried our plates to the table beside the window where we had shared coffee during the storm. Outside, headlights moved across the wet street. Inside, the bakery smelled of cinnamon, coffee, and fresh bread. I thought about the woman I had been a year earlier, terrified that losing the bakery meant losing the last piece of my mother. I understood now that what Mom had given me was never trapped inside these walls. It lived in every meal offered without judgment, every chair pulled out for someone who needed one, every person treated as though their worth had nothing to do with their bank account. Claire squeezed my hand. "What are you thinking about?" "How strange life is." "Because you sheltered a stranger?" "Because I thought I was giving her a cinnamon roll." Claire laughed softly. "You were." I leaned closer and rested my head against her shoulder. Turns out we were both hungry for something else. Not money. Not rescue. Not someone to make life easy. We had needed trust, dignity, belonging, and the courage to let another person stand beside us without standing above us. The rain continued beyond the glass, but neither of us was waiting for the storm to pass anymore. We had learned that love was not about saving someone from her life. Sometimes love was simply opening the door, making room at the table, and choosing, day after day, to save a place for each other.